So really today we're going to talk about, the topic of this presentation is really about using automation and empathetic communication, how it relates specifically to marketing within the senior living segment. And the reality is that marketing has changed. We had our challenges before COVID, and definitely the changes that came about as COVID came in place required, of course, all of us to change. And definitely it's a case that empathetic communication is more important now than it ever has been. So it's changed, COVID's changed the way we buy stuff, the way we live, the way we sell stuff. And really you will see here today, hopefully by the end of this presentation, that using automation will improve communication and the whole experience of choosing a place for a loved one, if you will. So really, the challenge today, I'm just going to pass things over to Dylan, and Dylan's going to talk about the current situation.
Hey, everyone. So what I want to first touch on is obviously traditional marketing, kind of what we're all doing. For the people who are thinking about moving to a senior living community or are looking for their loved ones, obviously it's an emotional purchasing decision. It's often something that we have to educate people on. And it's a long decision-making process. And I would say prior to 2019, often people are very technically challenged. On the community side, obviously we were all working with limited budgets. I think that's still true, but we did have a proven playbook. So kind of year after year, we knew the steps we needed to do in order to attract new prospects and new families to come to the community to learn about it. Obviously, any salespeople on this call know it's certainly a high-touch engagement business. And then, in terms of our focus, like I said earlier, traditional media, print, direct mail pieces, but also over the last couple of years, we're obviously all mixing in digital and social, and usually doing this as a very manual process. And in the end goal, obviously, traditionally would be to have the people come in through in-person for an in-person visit, either their home visit or come to an event or a tour. And really that was kind of like how we measured success in terms of the marketing. Once they came in for the tour or an event, then became part of the sales process. If you want to go to the next slide. Then COVID started for all of us, including the prospects and families we're talking to. Uncertainty, no vaccine, no proven treatment, really not sure what's correct facts, what's incorrect facts. For the people we're particularly wanting to talk to, high-risk segment of the population, and just questions, like, hey, should I make this decision now? Should I stick with my original plan to be looking at senior living communities? And also, what's the safest place? Should I be at home? Should I be, with my loved ones? Should I move into a community? And how long will this last? I mean, really, if you remember back when this started, we all thought, well, this will be a rough month or two. And should I make any major changes now? That was one of the things that we definitely heard at all of our communities. People just saying, hi, I still really am interested either in IL, AL, or even moving my mom and dad into skilled nursing, but I just want to kind of hold off right now. And obviously on the community side, super concerned for our residents, for our staff, and for our own personal friends and family. I have siblings throughout the U.S., so it's a very trying time. And obviously for the sales team, all of a sudden, needed to have smaller events or even cancel events and canceled appointments, and lots of delayed move-ins, and just basically general questions about, so how are we going to manage our community? How do we take care of these residents and the employees, and how are we going to manage our sales and marketing? Next slide. Then at its height, at that point, we kind of all realized that COVID was going to be here for a while. For our prospects and their families, a lot of concern about themselves, their loved ones, their friends, their futures, trying to figure out how to deal with masks and shortages and restrictions, and then changing news and guidelines. And also, for my parents, and I'm sure for many other people, isolation and loneliness, later on boredom, but also unexpected illnesses and loss. And, just trying to figure out what's my personal plan, how am I get through this? And then learning new technologies, my mother would have sweared to never talk to any of us through Zoom, and now it's something we do on a weekly basis, as well as picking up hobbies and just spending time with friends and family. So at the height of it, we're just trying to figure out how to get through it. On the community side, obviously super high focus on resident employee safety, dealing with the changing demands for reporting, the changing demands for communication, but also the importance of communication. And I know for a lot of marketing teams who are primarily focused on communicating to new prospects and new families, now it was being asked to step up and help with the resident communication, the resident family communication. Then we had the lockdowns and just the news. I personally think putting a little bit overemphasis on senior living and the challenge that we were facing. But on the brighter side, we're both the audiences and ourselves, we were learning new technology, being more creative, doing lots of Zoom, all mastering the phrase, your mic's off, and just being creative and being supportive in new engaging ways. So really, unlike the start, I think at the height of it, both the prospects and their families and our communities ourselves, we started to get a handle on it. And I think that's a real positive thing. Next slide.
So yeah, so definitely COVID has changed the game for everybody, and really the question is how has this transformed our approaches to sales and marketing? So definitely it's a case that before COVID, right, we had our traditional approaches, but now that it's a case that we had adoption of new technology, and definitely on the sales side, people are having to adjust their processes, and on the marketing side, doing internal communications as well as now combining that with external communications. Definitely, it's a case. It's changed all of this. Dylan? Yeah,
really for myself and my family, but also talking with existing residents and new residents, we all kind of came up with our plan, our pod, our bubble, our collection of friends and families that we felt comfortable being with. Obviously watching way too much Netflix and talking about way too much Netflix, but also bright news, improving treatments, brighter news, brighter numbers, brighter outlook, and obviously just a new comfort with technology, with the unknown, with being like, okay, here's the situation and we don't know actually when it's all going to be back to normal, but that's okay. And getting, starting to have that attitude, we definitely saw, especially in the last couple months, a huge uptick in terms of people who are ready to keep planning, keep talking, and wanting to move in, and living for the future attitude. And on the community side, just a shout out to everybody who's on this call, as well as my own people. Creativity, support, and just real grit in terms of getting through this. But also like a new comfort with technology. I'll definitely say prior to this. Our sales teams, our marketing teams had a varying level of technical understanding, and we found new ways to connect. We were kind of floored the first time we had someone move in who had never actually been to the campus. They'd seen videos of it, they'd had Zoom walkthroughs, but made the decision that they wanted to move in and did so. So first step on the campus for the first time actually being here. And then virtual events for prospects and families, and also residents. I think that's the other thing too that's super important is suddenly, the importance of technology in terms of talking to our own residents, the resident families became super important. And I think one of the key tools for that, especially for us, was starting to use marketing automation. Next slide.
Joe?
Yeah, so prior to the pandemic, communities were kind of gearing up. We knew that 10,000 Americans were turning 65 every day. So everybody was kind of getting ready to bring in a mass group of people. But then all of a sudden the pandemic happens and we see search volume drop significantly, especially during the first 2 quarters of the pandemic. Communities stopped allowing tours, competition in the space dropped marketing spends as well. So we saw things like your cost per click go lower. We saw things like your occupancy, of course, go lower because we weren't able to have those tours. We also saw hiring challenges. Healthcare workers were overworked and still are overworked, and many communities saw employees leave for easier or higher paying jobs. Next slide.
Yeah, and I think that definitely wherever it's a case where we have staffing challenges or people being overworked, and really the question comes about is, labor is how are we going to do more with less? Definitely everybody's learning to wear a whole bunch of new hats and do more things, and the expectations on the people that are there left doing things is that yes, they're still looking for results, still looking for things to move forward. So really this plays into this whole concept of automation. And the question is, well, what is marketing automation? And just from a definition perspective, it's the use of tools and technology to execute multi-channel marketing initiatives through the use of automatic execution. So it's being able to use machines to do, if you will, manual labor. If we think about automation, it doesn't get its roots in sales and marketing. It actually came from manufacturing, as we all know, right? And if we think about what automation has done in the manufacturing space, is it really reduced definitely manual labor, transformed the role of people from doing labor and using brawn to using their brains. And in manufacturing specifically, it definitely improved accuracy, precision, and can't be understated enough is the safety in the workplace. People are trusting their lives to having automatic shutdowns and controls, etc. So really the message here with automation though is what automation is. It's really using machines to do those things that are typically labor intensive, so that we as humans in the process can be more creative and use our brains, if you will. And so definitely in sales and marketing, there's lots of rationale for automatic control. There's a lot of very low-level administrivia stuff that we'd go through on any buyer journey or any move-in or any process. Like ask any salesperson how many times they've sent the same email to a prospect or a person during the sales process, and yeah, it's clearly almost robotic if they do it, right? But the idea of doing automatic control or automated task execution is that definitely it improves quality, precision, just like it did in manufacturing. Just even the same process, the manual process that we do internally with our demand gen processes, whether it's collecting leads, categorizing leads, distributing the leads, following up with the prospects, going through the process when somebody makes a deposit, the process of moving in or re-engaging with people that have stepped away for a while because things like COVID. The point is a lot of this stuff is just consuming a lot of labor hours. And if we're doing all of this labor, then clearly there's going to be, whenever the situation is where we're doing manual labor, there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be cases where something isn't done or something isn't done right, etc. So definitely the use case for automatic control in sales and marketing is very high. So very quick topic about talk about who we are as ActiveDEMAND. ActiveDEMAND is a full stack marketing automation system that the unique capability is it's multi-tenant architecture, and definitely a lot of people on the call have been using marketing automation. The ActiveDEMAND is a unique marketing automation system as that it allows for managing automation across a large inventory of campuses, communities, etc. So just pass it over to Joe. Joe's going to give a quick example of an automated flow.
Sure. Yeah. So this is very, very kind of the easiest way that I can explain marketing automation. Potential resident or adult child clicks through to the website. From there, they call the community or fill out a form on the website, and we track where the user came to the website from. So whether that be PPC ads, SEO, sorry, I should say organic, Facebook ads, what have you. However they landed on the website, we're able to track them from there. And then we connect the user to the CRM. So the CRM is the sales software associated to that specific community, whether that be Eldermark, Enquire, Sherpa, what have you. We begin dripping content out to the user based on the level of care they've inquired about. So if they are if they're looking for memory care or, assisted living or independent living or, whether they're the adult child influencer or the resident themselves, they're going to receive content based on what their needs are. From there, the resident moves in and we are able to adjust the campaigns based on the ROI achieved by the marketing effort. So what we mean by that is we can take a look to see all the different points in which a person has actually come through to the website and come through to the community. And if we notice that there are certain avenues that are, performing not as well as others, then we can basically take budgets from there and put them towards avenues that are performing better. Next slide.
Yeah, and definitely to that point is that's back to the manufacturing topic, is one of the side effects of adding automated systems in manufacturing is the ability to measure, right? Measure and optimize. And I think that's one of the things that marketing automation has brought to sales and marketing, is the ability to truly understand the entire buyer journey and the attribution of the marketing spend through to move-ins. Dylan? I think you're on there.
Yeah, this is a great slide for kind of comparing traditional or high hands-on marketing with marketing automation. And this is kind of a pretty big transformation that we experienced with COVID. We were kind of lucky. We'd already started looking into marketing automation in 2018, looking at different platforms, looking at what would work best with our CRM. But we were doing all of these things, very labor intensive, more effort than creative. We'd have our big, annual meetings, or big quarterly meetings, or our monthly meetings, but then it was about doing the tasks, handling direct mail pieces, building the emails every month, or coordinating with our agency to make that happen. So very often repetitive tasks, repetitive campaigns, repetitive strategies, and then reporting the results was a bit of a manual process. Yes, iContact has a report. Yes, Google has a report. Yes, our CRM has a report, but pulling that all out and manually putting it together to kind of see the data that we needed to know that we were being successful, but also for our quarterly, executive reports and things along those lines. And definitely for our sales team, there's only 24 hours in a day. And one of the things that I really embraced, and our teams have embraced over the last 2 years, is the idea of the difference between a marketing qualified lead and a sales qualified lead. A marketing qualified lead is basically someone who's engaging with your marketing, perhaps your social media, perhaps visiting your website, but they haven't really indicated that they want to talk to the sales team, or if they aren't being responsive to the sales team reaching out to them. While a sales qualified lead, it's very simple. It's those families and prospects that are engaged and are talking to the sales team and kind of moving forward in their own journey. Traditionally, the sales team would have to work both of those, but with marketing automation, as you see in the second list, you're able to change that focus so that marketing and automation focus on potential prospects, people we know who are interested, and sales teams focus on the engaged prospects. But additionally, I really like to think of marketing automation as both for our marketing team and our sales team as having a digital assistant. I'm pretty confident everybody on the call, if the higher up said, hey, you've been approved to hire one extra person for each of your people, we'd all jump at the chance. And marketing automation can let that happen, especially when it comes to those repetitive tasks and those reminders. And I'll share some examples of that later. But we've really seen an increase in our productivity, our customization, really our ability to say, based on the level of care they're interested in, whether they're a single person or a married couple, whether it's the adult child or it's the prospects themselves, we're now able to have that happen on a much more frequent basis. I think the other thing that really surprised me about marketing automation is we always thought of it in terms of email, but we're actually using it to schedule our social media. We're starting to do it for our print, and I'm sure Joe and Sean can talk to other ways that you can do things. And the part that's a real blessing for me, because I am the person who had to assemble a lot of reports, is just the ability to have a lot of that reporting now be automated. So really what we found is by moving from traditional to marketing automation, it's kind of really transformed the roles of our team and myself, where I probably spend more of my days thinking on being creative and trying to think about what are the needs of the prospects, what resources are they looking for, what information can really help educate them about senior living. So I do feel that it is, first they have to like your community, they have to like the sales team and the other people that are meeting, but in the end, they also have to trust you and feel that that you're the best choice. Next slide.
So yeah, the question is how is automation changing for senior living? And definitely we're seeing adoption of automation. COVID definitely drove a lot of it, and later in this conversation, when we start talking about empathetic communication, you'll really see how automation has improved the process. So Joe?
Yeah, for sure. So from a marketing perspective, automated drip campaigns, so emails, direct mail, social, texting, things like that. Dylan just mentioned about direct mail, being able to pull zip codes or postal codes, depending on what country you're in, based on the residence that you currently have, and then being able to push those out is a huge aspect of that. Touching all the prospects, automatic reporting of engagement, so making sure that no matter who that prospect is, if they're the adult child influencer or the resident themselves, what level of care they're at, basically making sure that you're able to have constant communication. The reality is that salespeople are people, and they're not necessarily always able to consistently be following up. And sometimes the communication that we want to be having out there is not necessarily always sales oriented. We want to show that you are a trusted source as a community. So it also allows you to reduce the money spent on third-party referrals. So the reason for this is basically all those different marketing aspects that you're using. If we're able to show that the lead has come through to the CRM, and we can put a timestamp on that, if they come through from that third-party referral afterwards, you can decline that. So that helps improve the ROI of all marketing channels. Allowance to optimize different campaigns based on real results. Kind of chatted about that a little bit before. Say Instagram, as an example, is not performing as well as Facebook or a PPC campaign or what have you. We can pull budget back from that and optimize the campaign based on that. You can also optimize all of your drip campaigns to figure out which ones are actually getting the highest open rate and which ones are converting. Reduce or eliminate manual monthly or quarterly reporting. So we all love reporting. That's what we want to spend our entire lives doing. That's a joke. Yeah, so it allows us to basically take a look at the reports and really find what KPIs are really, really important to us and roll with that. And it gives back time and creative focus to the marketing team. So from a sales perspective, support salespeople with multiple touches to their clients through drip campaigns. Chatted about that. Provides insight into prospect engagement to help shape communication. This is really, really important. Basically knowing what type of things are resonating with the potential residents or the adult child influencers associated, and being able to optimize the campaigns based on that. It allows salespeople to see all communication with the client in one place in the CRM. So they're not only seeing their own communication if they are updating the CRM appropriately, but they're also seeing the drip campaigns and different information that's going out so that they can see what was the most recent email that went out, what was the content of that, and if the user ends up basically reaching out to the community and saying, oh, I received an email about X, they can quickly go into the CRM, figure out what that email was, and be able to speak to that. Allow salespeople to see all talked about that. Acts as the world's best assistant. Yeah, so it definitely supports the salesperson as an assistant. It is not in any way intended to replace a salesperson. It can't replace the salesperson. It is just an extra tool, an extra bullet in their gun, I guess, if you want to put it that way. And let's marketing focus on the marketing qualified lead, and the sales team focus on the sales qualified lead, most importantly.
Yes.
Next one.
Dylan?
I think the other area that really surprised us, and kind of is what we're working on right now for the future, is that marketing automation can actually help us with our move-ins and our new residents. So we've been working closely with our move-in teams, kind of saying, what's the process that you already have? Because obviously, every talented department at any community has set processes and ways they do things, and often they may even have those in binders. They may have check sheets that they use that they print out. So we met with our move-in coordinators, and it's actually a very clear rhythm in terms of for when someone first decides that they're ready to become a resident and they write that deposit check, then what reminders should go out, not just to the new resident, but also to the sales team, to the move-in team. I think that's one of the things that really surprised us about marketing automation, where it's not just a prospect, it's not just a prospect family communication tool. It's something that we really use internally in terms of sending reminders to our own team, making sure we're having that consistent messaging go out. But also, especially during COVID, suddenly, the level of communication being asked from us, from our residents, being asked from us, from their families, tripled, and it became pretty intensive. And by using marketing automation, we were able to make sure that that information went out correctly to the right people. We were able to monitor to make sure they were being engaged in it. So I think there's a lot of opportunity once you have marketing automation up and running smoothly for your marketing and sales team to really start thinking in that second or third year, how can we start to apply this to other areas of our community? Next slide.
Yeah, definitely on this topic is definitely with COVID, all of a sudden there's this block between loved ones and the people who are in the communities, and definitely communication played such an important role. And I think those communities that had marketing automation and tools in place to get the communication out and the right communication out were definitely in a better position than those that did not. And the impact, and speaking of how it relates to empathy, is definitely the families and the people, the residents, both groups. Without the communication, there's definitely this uncertainty, and it definitely, definitely the companies that had the communication tools to do it, across the board, everybody was in a much better spot.
Yeah, and I would add, especially for Covenant, because we're a multi-location organization, the built-in branding that you can do in marketing automation, where you build it once, and the system's able to change out logos, change out addresses, phone numbers, and even change out salespeople's addresses and signatures, just made life so much easier during that heightened period. This next slide also shows another area, two areas actually, where we're starting to explore using our marketing automation, and that's in hiring. Right now, we all exist in a very challenging hiring market. And really, internally, we've stopped using the word hiring process and now use the term recruitment marketing. And really what recruitment marketing is taking the same strategy and focus and year-long effort that we've been applying to attracting prospects to also attracting recruits. And marketing automation is a critical part of that, especially for reaching potential candidates. We're able to manage our emails, our social media through it. But it's also helped us improve our application on onboarding process. An important way that we do that is we really focus on the idea of having people engage first and then ask them for all the details that HR will need later. A lot of times when you go to any company's website and you click on the career section, the form they're asking you to fill out is asking you to upload, photo ID, a copy of your resume, versus simply saying, hey, what position are you interested in? Tell me a little bit about yourself that makes you think you're qualified, and then following up with them. So we really kind of switched our model where our focus is first to engage the potential candidate, and then once a quick call or quick review of what they've written shows that they're a potential candidate, then sending them that link for the more in-depth. But also, marketing automation is a great way to schedule that process. One place where you can see all of the interviews that are scheduled. The system automatically sends out reminders, all things that you can do in Outlook, but you have to, be pretty savvy with Outlook to pre-program all your reminders and things like that. It's nice with marketing automation of once as a team or as an organization, we agree this is our hiring process or this is our communication process, then that template is always adhered to, which is one of the things I love about marketing automation. And obviously, once someone's our current employees, we reach out and communicate with them on a regular basis. We obviously have for years and years, but now we're starting to explore ways to also use marketing automation to do that. And across the board, on all these different areas we talked about, the part that I really love is that consistency in terms of how things are being handled, but then also the reporting and the tracking to know that it's being effective. Next slide.
And on the topic of empathy, bringing employees into an organization where they want to, again, with the hiring challenges that we have, empathetic communication is just as important as when we're talking about residents, right? As people need to think that the organization that they're looking to join is an organization that sees them as people. Right, and some of the challenges we have with communication with residents and prospects, this applies as well to building trust through empathetic communication with candidates as well. Joe? Yeah,
for sure. So for the recruitment marketing aspect, I wanted to just draw some attention to a couple of different things. Doing recruitment marketing, you can market people in different ways. Geofencing other senior living communities and targeting people that as an example, are in the community for between 6 to 10 hours. We know that those individuals are more than likely not residents, because they'll spend more than 12 hours in a community, and they're not the adult child influencers visiting or a vendor or different things like that. You can also market these individuals through PPC campaigns or different avenues like that. But the marketing automation aspect of doing all these campaigns really does hone back into what is the most effective way of driving these candidates through, and then having them actually go from these campaigns directly to a form fill, as Dylan mentioned, where they can submit all that information, rather than landing on, as an example, the homepage of the website and then trying to navigate through in different avenues like that. So very similar to the way that we would bring on residents through different marketing channels, but obviously a tailored approach to recruiting specifically.
Very good.
Yeah.
Dylan?
I kind of touched on this throughout the presentation, but really I just love the tracking and reporting. Like I said beforehand, we'd have to ask our newspaper to provide reporting on the things we're doing through them, Google Analytics, just pulling it from everywhere, assembling it, converting it, making it all work together, or paying for custom reports either through our IT department or outsourcing. So I just really love the tracking and reporting that you'll find throughout marketing automation. In terms of the marketing team, creating those reports and automating everything. And then, like we said, for the sales team, just providing that digital assistant and allowing them to have more time to really focus on those qualified leads.
Yeah, and speaking about reporting, is that reporting isn't a data dump. People when they start talking about reporting, it's okay. Here's let's just throw a whole bunch of stats at the wall and let people feast. The reality is, people's eyes start glossing over. There's nothing better than receiving an email every day with the one KPI that is going to drive my day. And with marketing automation, that's possible. Whether it's KPI reports on a daily basis or logging into a dashboard that has the KPIs and stats that I personally am interested in. That wasn't possible before marketing automation is the reality. Joe, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly touch on the thing that's probably drawing a lot of eyes, is the robot concern and how marketing automation supports the sales team. So recently I had the pleasure of joining, of attending the SMASH event. I'm not sure if a lot of you guys have been to SMASH, but it's the Sales and Marketing Advertising for Senior Housing. I think I said that correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. But one of the communities that I was chatting with there, we were chatting about marketing automation, and they brought up the robot concern, which is basically, if content is consistently going out to the residents or the adult child influencers, how do we make sure that it is, number one, empathetic, and number two, it's not just canned content. So I wanted to draw attention back to something that Sean mentioned before, where he was talking about those specific variables and how they can actually call the individual out based on the fact that the adult child influencer's name is, I think you used the example Mary, and then the resident was, I don't know, Glenda, and then so forth and so on. So in those drip campaigns, you can actually include all those different variables, and it'll come directly through from either the salesperson associated, the DCR, executive director, what have you, whatever you call that salesperson, so that it comes directly from their email. They still have all of your information at the bottom of the drip and all of that. So it very much does not look like it's an automated report or an automated drip campaign that's going out, or doesn't look like it's created by robots. It's created by people, and it looks on the end that it is also sent by people, so that it helps build that relationship a little bit further. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to chat about there.
Yeah, I think the other way that our sales team has found super useful is all the contact points that are happening, whether it's on social media, whether or not someone opened an email or they did a download. Those are all pieces of data that were very hard to share with them in the past. But through marketing automation, all that's pulled into the CRM. So it's really been great, where we kind of developed the philosophy of, hey, before I call someone, before I email someone, let me pull up their profile and just check out what the activity's been like. I always like to use the example of, by knowing whether or not they opened an email, it actually creates two different conversations. If they did open the email, I can just ask them what did they think about it. And if they didn't open it, I can introduce it as something that they should think about. Hey, I have this great new resource. I was thinking of you. wanted to call and see if it might be useful, and I can send it over to you. So also in terms of just reminders and other things, like we said earlier, the marketing automation really helps with that. So the sales team is focused on that relationship, on developing things. And I think we've done a good job of touching on how to support recruiting. But if anyone has any questions at the end, we can expand on that.
Yeah, so the question, and really that's the part of this whole presentation, is how can marketing automation be empathetic, right? And if we just think about empathy and engaging with people, and that's really what it's about, is people engaging with people, trust is absolutely the #1 element in empathetic communication. If you don't have trust, it doesn't matter what you're communicating or who you're communicating to. Empathy is it's a vacuum. There is no empathy, right? So really, from a trust perspective, you need the recipient in the communication needs to trust the person sending the communication. They need to trust that the person that they're talking to has the ability, through knowledge, resources, etc., to help and understand, right, and communicate the understanding. And definitely from a community perspective is trust that the community, and this is extremely important, of course, is the community is got the quality, the engagement isn't just all up front, it's going to be a long-lasting relationship. And again, trust. It's all about communication, right? Not just what's in the communication, who's the communication from, but it's also the tempo of the communication, right? The communication stops. It's a case that clearly doesn't matter how empathetic someone's trying to be, without any type of communication, it's not going to be there. Again, with trust, it's got to be, whether it's the person moving in or the loved one that is looking for a place for their mom or whatever. Again, this trust has to be there, and trust is either eroded or it's built upon, right? And it's a case that without the trust, it's a case that we're not going to be able to, whether we're using automation or not, communicate and through empathy, right? So things that erode trust, no communication's a big one, right? If I'm not hearing anything, and definitely with COVID, those communities that didn't have marketing automation tools, etc., were not communicating. So definitely, it's not building on trust; it's eroding trust. Messaging inconsistency, right? Just not just the content, the formatting, what it's saying, the tempo, part of the journey. Again, if there's inconsistency in tempo and content and quality, again, it's going to erode trust. And back to the tempo, right? Is way too much communication or no communication. If there's no consistent tempo in the communication, again, trust is going to be eroded. And this is, all marketers know this one is really about relevant content, right? Is that we're in an age where we have so much information being dumped on us, and if we are contributing to the problem by just dumping irrelevant information on anybody, again, it's going to erode trust. And back to Joe's comment about the robot, is if you're missing the mark on the content and the tempo and the timing of the content, it's going to become very evident that there's a robot in the room. And really, no matter what we're doing, we want to, specifically when we're trying to communicate and through empathy, you don't want to have a robot in the room, is the reality. So with empathetic communication is we have to think about the context of the individual, right? The context of the person that we're communicating with. So again, it's one is listening is a big important part, and part of the listening is understanding, and with the understanding, definitely communicating relevant content based on that understanding. and it's got to be personal, right? It's if we're sending communications to people who are facing a significant emotional decision, and we are sending it in fancy HTML renderings, etc., it's just going to look like marketing material. It's got to be personal communication. Again, back to the point, is contextual as well as communication or content that's relevant to the situation that the individual is in. And again, communication. It isn't just about communicating, over communicating. It's about contextual, personal communication that relates specifically to the individual we're communicating with. And it's really back to the understanding. It's about, thinking about, mirroring or repeating statements. Again, as, we talked about this, Mary, and if I understand correctly, this is what your mom Gertrude's concerns are, or your concerns are, or your brother's concern. And echoing this stuff back to the individual, again, is actually builds this trust, and it builds on really using this empathetic approach to engaging. And again, with empathetic communication, we have to address the person's emotional feelings and the impact of the decisions that they're about to make, right? And we all know this in senior living, when we're looking at somebody's making a decision. It is a life-changing event, and sometimes it's being triggered by something, something big in the prospect's life. So it's a case that patience as well is like understanding and hearing the whole story of the individual. So all of these things I'm talking about is what's required for empathetic communication. The question is how can you actually deliver this using automation? Well, there's a couple of things that automation helps with, is that consistency and managing of the tempo. This is something that, if left in the hands of people, definitely if I have all the time in the world, I'll get it right. But back to the comments about the COVID situation, where we're all being forced to do more with less, wearing multiple hats, the more things that people are having to do, the more mistakes that are going to be made, which are going to erode trust. And again, you're going to lose this empathetic thread throughout the dialogue. So automation helps a lot with this. Specifically, one is that if you're using, which was mentioned earlier, the counselor, all the emails coming from the leasing counselor, and this consistent communication from the leasing counselor, and you're not using big fancy HTMLs, you're using plain text, few graphics, and contextual content in these communications. This is something that automation is intrinsically strong at. And again, the tempo, being able to control the tempo of the communications, again, this is something that is very easily set up with automation. And one of the powerful things, and it was mentioned earlier, that's possible with the right automation system, is the ability to do automated communications by bringing in and referencing the relationships between the people involved in the decision-making process. And like, for example, I know with our platform, ActiveDEMAND, we have the ability to pull in a contact and their related contacts, and actually reference the relationships in automation. In other words, abstracting the details of the relationships and the names of the people in the relationships, and actually have contextual communication. Like, for example, Mary, with regards to your mom, Gertrude is an example, right? That's stuff that we have in the CRM, and it's reflected into the marketing automation system, and you can actually use automation to leverage, again, this information that's already there, and have stronger communication and stronger communication with the constituents involved. And again, a lot of times that if we understand the person's concerns, we're actually drawing from a inventory of solutions or recipes that address those concerns. And again, this can be all automated with dynamic content saying, other caregivers who were concerned with this found that this here solution helps considerably. And our community, this is how much we're doing here with this specific this solution. So again, it's really about enforcing. One is that with empathy, it's we can define a process, define tempos, define our best practices, and actually deploy these across a large fleet of campuses. Right? It's define the trust process, deploy the trust process, and something that's super strong with automation is monitor, measure, and improve. Right? And once we do improve, being able to deploy these processes across a large inventory of communities that have unique branding, unique people, et cetera, is very easy. So again, you're defining your tempo, defining your communication strategy through each step of the journey, and once this process is defined, deploy, measure, improve, repeat. So yeah, I'll pass this over to Joe.
Thanks, yeah. So remove the sales aspect of the drip campaign. So this actually, sorry, Sean?
Yeah, go ahead. You cut out for a second there.
Okay, sounds good. So removing the sales aspect of the drip campaign. So creating the right message for trust and empathy. The people on the other end of the drips are going through one of the hardest transitions of their lives, and chances are it comes on the heels of another hard transition. So this speaks a lot to Sean's last point, that this is a major transition, selling off the family home. They've worked their entire lives and now they're downsizing. This is a huge challenge. A lot of the times it comes on the heels, as mentioned, of another transition. Maybe a spouse has passed, maybe they've had an injury, maybe the adult child influencer is now recognizing that mom has dementia and different things like that. So there's it's a very trying time. It's probably one of the hardest times of their lives, is moving everything that they've built and now moving into a community. So coming at this place from a position of trust and empathy is really, really important. So one of the things that I want to, I guess, push your way is educating the end user, give them the tools that they need to support the person that they love. So if it is on the track of the adult child influencer and they do have, and the parent does have, memory care issues as an example, give them information about how to care and how to love somebody who has dementia or has memory care issues, or if they're on the assisted living track, how to support those individuals. Different things like that. It doesn't necessarily need to be all about your community and saying, hey, you know what, we've got tours available next week at this time, jump in kind of thing. That's not the intention of all of this. You want to really make sure that you're approaching this from a place where they see you as the expert. They see you as the thought leader when it comes to these different pieces. Very similar if you're familiar with, SEO and blog creation. Talking about what people are actually searching for is really important for an SEO strategy, and doing that through the blogs and all of that. Do the exact same thing with these drip campaigns where you're actually focusing in on what the need of those individuals are and make sure that those are tracks available. Give the potential residents something they can use. So again, it's not about closing the sale, it's about showing them an increased quality of life. So we like to give adult child influencers and even we like to give residents and even adult child influencers themselves recipes, applications, exercises they can use in everyday life so that they can kind of basically take the information that you guys are giving them and use it to increase their quality of life. Give the user actionable advice. Tips on questions to ask on a tour is a huge benefit. Just because they're taking those questions and asking those questions, if they're doing a tour with you guys, that's great. They should ask the questions. If they're doing a tour with any of the other communities, they should be asking those questions as well. These are things that you can give these people without, cause they're not going to necessarily know what they need to know at this point. So they may not move in with you, but they are more likely to come to you if you come from a position of trust. Is the end of the line there. Next slide.
So yeah, really, the question here is who has time for marketing automation? We're talking about all kinds of stuff, and we're all busy. It's you're just trying to add more stuff to my responsibilities list. Yeah, who has time for it is the reality, and I just want to talk a little bit about that. Is the question is right now is how much of your time is currently spent doing things that could be automated, right? Like how much time are your people or people you're relying on building, exporting, importing lists to communicate with folks, building, testing, sending marketing materials to lists that they've been handed to. Like you can see, not only is there manual effort going on here, the probability of mistakes is increasing rapidly. Manually sending resource PDFs, follow-ups, chasing unresponsive people, trying to connect with contacts. Again, back to this creating reports thing, getting the data dump for people to consume, and really just engaging with contacts one at a time, right? Again, if we're now faced in a situation where I'm expected to do more with less, I'm already doing way too much. That all could be automated. How many times have you ever had the situation where an email was sent to the wrong list, or communication that was sent to people that have passed or moved on, etc.? So the reality is that there's tons of time here that's being wasted and mistakes are being made. So I think I argue that everyone has time to do automation. Joe?
Yeah. So time is money. You guys have probably never heard that term before. It's something I created myself. Also a joke. Marketing automation gives you back time. So having a strong marketing automation program will reduce the time spent by both marketing and sales departments. Sales reduces the amount of time spent in reaching out to clients that may not be interested and haven't returned calls. We all see this. We see this with our salespeople and qualified leads. Sometimes they end up not returning calls, not ending up coming through, and different things like that. We're able to basically begin scoring these individuals based on who we feel is the most likely to come through to the community. But with that being said, we don't want to make assumptions on these things. We want to make sure that we're consistently dripping out content until basically they tell us otherwise. Marketing replaces time manually doing emails, social post reminders, and more. That piece is pretty self-explanatory. This marketing automation basically supports them with all those different things. Allows for lead scoring to show which leads perform specific actions and rate them based on likelihood to close. So as an example, an individual sees your Facebook ad. Then after that, they come through from your pay-per-click ad. Then, after that, they fill out a form. They'll get a score based on the fact that they have seen that ad, now click through to a pay-per-click ad, and now filled out a form. If they come back to the website, now they've called the community, or now they've filled out another form, or downloaded a brochure, or downloaded a floor plan, and different things like that. All of those different factors that happen on your website will increase that score. And then if they stop basically reacting with your community, as time goes on, that score will go lower and lower and lower until eventually it either dies out or they're reactivated based on the fact that they've now come back to the website. So those scores really do help your salespeople know who is ready to buy, who are those money in hand consumers ready to rock and roll. So users have been considered lost or cold leads that come back to the website can be flagged in the CRM for the sales team to re-engage with and reactivate without necessarily making a formal connection. So again, if these individuals have already come through to the website, but it was a year and a half ago, all of a sudden they come back to the website, they're now reactivated, and the CRM can prompt the salesperson to be like, hey, by the way, this is a huge opportunity for you.
And hey, this is Dylan. I would say, our marketing teams and our sales teams did have hesitations and concerns about marketing automation, but really everything on that last slide, once it was up and running and they were seeing how they were able to more focus on, for the marketing team being creative and for the sales team in terms of engaging with engaged prospects, they're very supportive and happy of it. And there's another slide we'll show you shortly where a lot of the ideas came directly from them after having seen marketing automation in place for a while.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, smarter budgets, marketing automation saves you money. We chatted quickly about third-party referrals. I won't coin any of the names of third-party referrals. I'm hoping you know what I mean. But basically, they're referral companies where an individual comes through from these referral companies, and then they'll end up taking basically 100% of the first month's rent. So being able to prove that the user has already worked with your marketing and has a timestamp associated to it means that you can reject those third-party referrals. Some CRM can do this for you automatically and will still prompt the salesperson. So let's say that a user comes through to the community a year and a half ago, and they're considered a lost lead, or however you would refer to them in your CRM. After that point, we can basically, if somebody comes through from one of these third-party referral companies, it pushes through to the CRM and the CRM rejects it. The CRM can then prompt the salesperson and say, hey, by the way, these guys were considered a lost lead a year and a half ago. You should probably reach out and just see how things are going with them, because they've basically been reactivated because of one of these third-party referral companies. User search and marketing campaigns. Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that.
All good. User search and marketing campaigns. Being able to track users from the initial point of interacting with the brand allows you to optimize branding techniques as well as lead generation techniques to spend your money more effectively. That's what we were chatting about when it comes to different avenues that these individuals could potentially be coming through from. And we keep mentioning digital aspects of this. It doesn't have to be digital. If you, as an example, had call tracking numbers on print mediums, or you had, as an example, a vanity URL on a radio ad, and it all pumps through to the website, we can track those different things as well. So marketing automation allows you to basically track all of these different avenues that a potential resident can come through from to the website. So it can really allow us to see what the ROI is across the board. Tracking and reporting. Marketing automation built in tracking and reporting lets you know which of your online and offline tactics are creating actual new prospects. Basically what I just explained, but it gives us a really good understanding of dollar for dollar, where's the best place to spend your money.
Dylan.
Hey, this is probably my favorite slide in the deck. One of the things that was really kind of eye-opening for us was when we originally started our conversations with different vendors, consultants, etc., about marketing automation. Everyone kept talking about there'd be a need for custom journeys, custom personas. But really, once we started seeing examples of that, and also talking to other senior living organizations across the U.S. Who we have strong contacts with, we realized really for the first year or two, we all know what the personas are. We all know what the journeys are. I suspect everybody who's kind of jumping ahead and reading through this list, they're like, oh yeah, that would be useful. That would be useful. So I'd really encourage everyone, if you have marketing automation and you've been struggling to get it up and running, or if you're thinking about marketing automation, this is a great list to kind of start and say, here are the journeys that we want to do, because these are known factors. Agencies like Joe's, they have these, they have examples of them, they're able to implement them quickly. Covenant's actually working on our own versions of these and having a lending library so that we can work with Sean to have them imported into other people's accounts, because we just really believe in this approach that for the first year or two, we all know what the journeys are, we all know what the personas are, so let's just get marketing automation up so that both the marketing team and the sales team can benefit from that. So the first set, obviously on the left, are kind of the core ones that we all think about, that auto response for all forms, that nurturing journey for different levels of care. And also for us, we focused originally on IL and AL, but now we're starting to expand into our other levels of healthcare. But also on the recruiting side, having a career nurturing journey in place. And then the ones that our sales teams really like, the event micro journey and the scheduled tour micro journey. These are basically the reminder emails, the sending of directions, things along those lines that they were sending out manually. So if we had an event with 40 people, that's 40 extra emails that they have to send out 2 or 3 times. But also the reporting back of, oh, hey, you didn't make your tour. Now the system actually sends out a link and says, hey, would you like to pick a day, 2 or 3 days from now, and let us know when you'd like to come back in for your tour. And then the ones after that, request information to schedule a tour to deposit. That's just my fundamental belief that it should always be a goal with each of your journeys. So the idea here is that if someone comes in through the request information form, but hasn't attended an event, hasn't done a tour with the community yet, how do we get them to that tour point? And then once they have done that tour, what's the information that they need in order to become a depositor? And really, all the content from this was from content that our sales team was using, our marketing team was using for the majority of it. And the journeys themselves were actually, we were guided by our sales team and our marketing team on what to create. And then on the right-hand side, these are some of the more creative ones that we're starting to develop. The depositor journeys, and like we talked about earlier, the ones for new residents, existing residents, as well as surveys. That's become a very important thing now that people are more comfortable using technology and being asked to use technology. We've long wanted to have a post-tour survey that we'll be rolling out, as well as one after events and other things like that. So just a lot of great areas that, like I said earlier, the marketing team didn't come up on their own. Instead, it was the collaboration with the sales teams and other departments that really helped us identify what were the most important journeys to kind of roll out over the first year or two of marketing automation.
Very cool. So yeah, to wrap this up, I know we're a little bit over time here, but I just wanted to say is that one is thank you for the time you've given us, and we're all in the situation where we're emerging from COVID. Definitely some strengths and weaknesses of emerging. We're definitely, things have changed, but we're definitely moving into a time where it's nice that people have adopted technology, and we can now use technology as part of the process, specifically seniors. And like Dylan and Joe mentioned, like myself, my mom had difficulties using a Kindle, and now she's talking to me on, on Zoom, which is fantastic. But also we got to realize that a lot of these people have been in this position of lack of communication, lack of care, isolation. So it's definitely a lot more emotional. And if we aren't aware of this and not thinking about this in our communications, it's just going to make things even more difficult. So hopefully through this presentation, we've demonstrated that the use of automation will help with the communication and help with building empathy and trust with the people, not only the people who are considering a place to move, but also the residents that are there today.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so in your marketing, what do you need to consider moving forward for 2022? What I will say is that communities are getting more and more aggressive with their marketing because of the fact that they haven't been able to do a ton of it during the pandemic, and now occupancy challenges have made it so that they need to be a little bit more aggressive with the budgets that they have. So for your 2022 budgets, be prepared for that. That you should have a budget that reflects the occupancy challenges that you guys have. I would also take a look at a couple of other organizations, specifically businesses like chat functionalities, or businesses that have quiz functionalities, like Rubrik as an example is a great organization. Different things like that can increase the amount of leads that you're generating from your website as well. So yeah, just wanted to quickly touch on that, and keep a close eye on things like your cost per click. We're seeing that cost per click is driving up because of the competition in the space. It might be valuable to take a look at that and optimize your campaigns, because basically what worked during the pandemic may not be working now that everybody else is getting so aggressive. So we want to make sure that no matter what you're doing, you're generating the best ROI for your communities, and you're doing all of that with empathetic messaging associated. Yeah.
I mean, I would just conclude with, I think 2022 is going to be a great year for communities to really be looking at things like marketing automation, Rubrik, chat, and just all these other great ways to really just increase how effective their marketing and sales is. If anybody wants to chat more, just feel free to reach out to any one of us.
Excellent. Yeah, well, thank you all. I know we went a little bit over here.